everyone, and thank you for coming to today's Play Attention webinar. My name is Gwen Sorley, and I'll be your host today. I know that most of you here today are educators, so I know it's sometimes difficult to take a break out of your day, but I do appreciate your time. And today we're going to be talking about unlocking classroom success and how we can utilize play attention to improve executive function. So a little bit about my background, because my background is very similar to many of yours. My background is in education. I have a master's in education, and I started using play attention when I was teaching second and third grade back in 1996. So I've been using play attention with my students for over 25 years. So I really do hope that my experiences and not only just working with children and students with play attention, but also helping school systems set up effective play attention programs. So before we get started, just remember the chat box is always there for you. Please do type in your questions or comments, because your comments and your questions really do enhance everyone's experience. And if I don't get to your questions during the webinar, I'll save a little bit of time at the end to make certain that I've addressed everyone's questions. So again, my name is Gwen Sorley, and we are recording this event. So tomorrow you'll receive a recording that you can share with other staff members who are unable to attend today. So I'm certain that all of you have had this discussion about the role of executive function in academic achievement, because we know that strong executive function is critical in the learning process. And when we look at executive function and we break it down, it's that set of mental processes that allow you to complete tasks. Executive function allows you to control your attention, your behaviors, your emotions. It allows you to plan and prioritize, organize, avoid procrastination, and remain on task. All of those processes that are required for academic success. And it's very difficult because, no one is born with strong executive function, but we all have the potential to develop strong executive function. And that development starts right after birth, and it continues through our mid to late 20s. Unfortunately, for a lot of our students, and this is why I mentioned it's a little bit difficult, is because we expect all of our students to have strong executive function by the time they hit middle school. So once they get into middle school, we really do expect them to be more independent, to be able to plan and prioritize and organize and stay on task and initiate tasks without being redirected and reminded. And some of our students do develop executive function quite naturally. But we'll have to keep in mind that there are a lot of factors that can inhibit that development, one of which is ADHD. But not only ADHD, it could also be anxiety, it could be trauma, it could be COVID-19 lockdown effects still. I was just looking online before we started, and there are now several studies that show how that COVID-19 lockdown really did slow the development of executive function for most of our students. And I'm certain, and you can raise your hand if you've observed this, but I'm certain that many of you have observed this in the classroom, because you may have been teaching for several years before we went into that lockdown, and you really see it firsthand how that lockdown really did inhibit that development. So what's important to remember is that we know through neuroplasticity that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable. And if we provide your students with the right feedback and the right challenge, they can develop these skills despite their current wiring. We know that age is not a factor. We also know that labels like ADHD are not a factor. If we provide them the right challenge and the right feedback, they can develop these skills that they need in order to have strong executive function. Now, what do you do typically to help individuals in the classroom who have ADHD or weak executive function. Then type in the chat box, what does your school do currently to help individuals with ADHD or weak executive function be successful in the classroom, be successful in that academic process? Okay, a lot of you are listing what came to my mind when I think back to when I was in the classroom, and that is we give them accommodations, right? Typically through a 504. Sometimes we just naturally set up accommodations in our classrooms. And when we look at those accommodations, I just listed a few very typical ones. Typically, we allow for longer test time, or we may even allow them to go to a separate room to take a test. We provide them with preferential seating. So you might have them sitting at the front of the room where you can use proximity control a little bit. We allow more time for written assignments and essays, shorten reports and assignments, maybe allow them to type certain assignments. So there are a lot of things we put in place. Sometimes we give them an extra set of books that they can keep at home because they have a difficult time remembering to bring all their materials home. So the accommodations are good. The strategies are great, right? We always give them tips and strategies that we want them to use. But when you reflect and really think about strategies that you might provide them or accommodations that you provide in your classroom, effective are they? What is your feedback? I'd like to know, do you find them extremely effective? And when I say effective, I mean our end goal, right? We're putting accommodations in place now so that they'll be successful in the classroom at this point, but that eventually when they graduate from high school, they will be able to be more independent of those accommodations, which probably won't be given to them when they get into university and, of course, into the workplace. So how many of you would say that they're extremely effective? How many of you would say that they're somewhat effective? And some of you may say that they're not effective at all. What is your feedback? Go ahead and type in, Janice, you have a good feedback there, only as effective as the degree of implementation. That is good to mention because sometimes we might not know of the accommodations, or we get caught up into, the number of students in the classroom, and those accommodations sometimes slip through the cracks. So you're right. It is important that we implement them. And then once we implement them, a lot of you are saying they're simply somewhat effective, right? That they're somewhat effective. They're not as effective as you would like. And although, like I said earlier, we want strategies, we want to provide them with strategies, we want to have these accommodations in place for them. But there's one thing that we're often missing in schools. And I know that when I started teaching, I was missing this, and that is that we must simultaneously teach skills, right? Because we can give longer test time, but sometimes that longer test time, if we are not simultaneously teaching that student how to direct and sustain their attention, how to process the information that's in their head and get it down on that test paper, how to filter distractions, how to control their impulsive nature so they're not just rushing through the work, how to retrieve information from working memory in order to use that during that assessment or that test. If we don't simultaneously teach attention stamina, processing speed, impulse control, filtering distractions, then many times that longer test time just ends up to be more time to daydream, right? If we give them preferential seating and we move them closer to us, they still can be highly distracted, both internally and by every other little thing around them, right? Because attention deficit is really a misnomer, right? It's not that they have a lack of attention. Problem is they have great attention. They're just paying attention to bits and pieces of everything. So we can move them closer to us, but we still have to teach that ability to filter distractions so they know how to pay attention to what's important and filter out all of that unnecessary stimuli. And that is what play attention specializes in. Play attention gives you customizable program where you can actually teach the foundational skills that are required for strong executive function. And we do this in a very unique way in that we integrate feedback-based technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping to provide you with the most comprehensive approach available. And this is so important because when you think about your students and you think about how they learn best, go ahead and type in the chat box. I'm going to give you 2 different answers, and I want you to type in how you feel your students learn best. Do your students learn best through experiential or hands-on learning, or do they learn best through lecture? Go ahead and type that in. Do they learn best through experiential hands-on learning or lecture? Okay, many of you, Janice, Shoshana, Rachel, Marie, Elizabeth, James, you're all saying hands-on. But it's so difficult to do with attention, right? Because how many times a day do your students hear, sit still, pay attention, eyes on me, right? We try to tell them what to do. We try to lecture and tell them what it means to pay attention. But attention's very abstract. So that's why we incorporate neurotechnology, advanced neurotechnology, when we're monitoring the brain activity of our students, and we can actually show them their attentive state in real time. That's when they get that experience of what it means to pay attention. So when I talk about incorporating feedback technology with very specific cognitive skills, I mean that your students will be wearing this body wave armband, just like you see on the screen. On the back of the armband, there are 3 sensors, and those sensors monitor my student's brain activity that tells us how attentive he is. And then that information is given over to the computer where he's allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with his mind, or more specifically, his attention alone. And he receives constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not he truly is focused and paying attention. And that's a really important first step in the learning process, right? Because right now, if you look at your students and you say, please pay attention, I need you to pay attention, they typically look at you and say, I need to pay attention. But they don't really know what it takes for them. So now we're taking that really abstract concept and making it concrete and controllable, where they actually see their attention in real time. They feel what they're doing, and they're allowed to practice not only attention, but all of these other cognitive skills that you see on the screen. And the reason we address all of these different cognitive skills is because these are the foundational skills they need in order to have strong executive function. So all of these exercises, whether it's attention stamina or working memory or auditory processing or social skills, you students won't need all of them. We're going to teach you how to customize each student's profile so that you're only working on those areas that are most important for that individual. So fully customizable. But what is important for you to remember is that all of these exercises are brain enabled, meaning they have to be paying attention in order to activate the activity. If they're not paying attention, then the activity will stop or the character will go in the wrong direction, and they have to focus back in order to continue. And the reason we do this is because we know the very first catalyst necessary for brain change is attention. And when we talk about strengthening executive function, that's exactly what we mean, right? We're sparking brain change. We're creating new neural pathways. And in order to do that, your student has to be engaged, has to be actively engaged, paying attention. And so if they're not paying attention, the activity stops and they get that immediate feedback. So we're only going to work if they're in their peak attentive state, because you can be a fantastic teacher. But if your student is having a really difficult time paying attention to you and your process, then it's going to be very difficult for them to get maximum benefit. Just imagine if you were only able to teach a skill if the student was paying attention to you, right? If they were in their peak attentive state. That's what we're doing here, making certain that we integrate feedback technology with cognitive skill training. And we've been doing this integration of feedback technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping for about 30 years. But Tufts University School of Medicine wanted to know, is that integration important? Or can we simply give them a series of cognitive exercises, or what you hear a lot about as brain games, and get the same results? So they went into the Boston Public School District, and they had 3 different groups of students, all identified as ADHD. The first group received play attention. So they had full integration. So they had a program, a customized program with feedback technology, cognitive skill training, and behavior shaping. So the second group received just cognitive exercises. So brain games on the computer, no feedback technology, and no behavior shaping. And the third was their control. So they received no intervention at all. And at the end of the study, the play attention students were the only students that showed global improvements in all areas, including academic, social, behavioral, and executive function. They were also the only students that if they started the study and they were on medication, the students that were in play attention group, because some of the students were on medication, some of them were not. If they were in the play attention group and on medication, those students had an average decrease in their medication, where the other 2 groups had an average increase. And that goes back to skill building. If we can help them develop the skills that they lack, there may be less of a necessity to mask symptoms. So I know, as we mentioned earlier, most of you here are educators and you like to review those studies. So if you would like us to share the studies with you, just go ahead and type Tufts in the chat box and we'll make certain that we follow up with you and provide you with copies of those studies because they're really interesting. One was a pilot study, and then they got such good results that the Department of Education funded the 2 following studies. One was their main study, and then the next one was a 6-month follow-up to make certain that even after a study ended and they were no longer using play attention, the skills maintained, which they did. Now, I am going to share with you, so now that we have a full background of, executive function, its role in the learning process, and the importance of providing feedback and challenge in order to spark brain change and create those new neural networks required for strong executive function. I want to share with you what a play attention program would look like in your school. And the very first thing I want to share with you is a video of one of my students. So I'm going to, if you will, just bear with me for a moment. I am going to switch my sharing here and show you a video of one of my students. Okay. Hopefully you can all see my video up on the screen right now. And I'm going to fast forward it just a little bit here so that we can get to the main part of the exercise. And how does this? I actually talk you through it, but I want you to hear Ty explain the process to you. So this is Ty. He's 9 years old in this video. And you notice that he has that body wave armband on. So remember that body wave armband is monitoring brain activity. That tells us how attentive he is. So he has that body wave armband on, and he's about to start an exercise called attention stamina. And this is his ability to direct and sustain his attention at will, much like being able to pay attention to the teacher in the classroom. So that's what we're teaching here. This is what we're helping him develop through experiential learning. And so he's going to explain to you how this works, and you're going to be able to see exactly the feedback and the challenge that he's receiving. Now, one thing I want to point out is that in this video, he has, at this point in his training, he's been working with me for about 6 months. So you're going to notice that he has now developed exactly what it takes for him to get into that attentive state. Not because I've told him how to do it, but because he's learned it through immediate feedback. All right, I'm going to let Ty take over and explain attention stamina to you. Game work.
It works all with your mind, and if you're paying attention or not, if you're not paying attention, he'll go high. If you are, he'll go low. And we want him low.
Good. So how are you going to get him low?
By paying attention and all with your mind.
Good.
Now let's play. Enjoy the video.
Okay, notice he sits back. He's very relaxed. These are all strategies he's learned through feedback. Puts a deep breath right there. He knows that helps him get into an attentive state. And now he's able to push that character down to the very bottom of the ocean, all with his mind alone.
Now I want to start fidgeting around a little bit. Which one would you do tomorrow? See, did you see him go up? That's because I wasn't paying attention. Now I'm going to try to bring him back down. And it's all with your mind. Just remember that.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. So now you notice how empowering that is, right? How he can actually see his attentive state in real time. And by providing him that immediate feedback, he's actually able to develop that self-regulation and self-monitoring he needs to recognize when he's paying attention, recognize when he's not paying attention, and more importantly, when he's not paying attention, he will know how to correct it because he's actually had the opportunity to practice it. Okay, Janice, thank you. You'll receive that recording. All right, so isn't that amazing? Now, you notice that my student there he's 9 years old, but keep in mind that play attention is appropriate from every age, from 5 years old all the way up through adulthood. And the powerful part of play attention is that it really empowers your students. So if you are here and you are teaching middle school currently, and you know that once they get to that middle school or high school, you know that a lot of times they feel like all of these skills are outside of their control. And now you're actually empowering them and showing them that they can control their attention. They can control all of these skills. It's very empowering. So that's that real-time feedback that provides them with an experience. So no longer are we lecturing, sit still, eyes on me, pay attention. We're actually providing them an experience where they can learn and develop those new neural pathways. A couple of things I want to mention on that. One is that you probably noticed our graphics. All of our graphics are very simple. They are very low stimuli. And the reason we do this is because we know, again, attention deficit is really a misnomer, right? There is no one with a complete deficit of attention. If it's high interest or high stimuli, like a video game, and I'm sure many of you have heard in the past, parents will come and say, I don't think he has an attention difficulty. He can play his video games for hours and never move. And that's because it's a matter of stimuli, right? They are wired to pay attention to high stimuli or high interest. So we don't need to teach them how to pay attention to entertainment. We've got that. They can do that. What we need to teach is what's more difficult, and that's how to pay attention to low stimuli, much like a classroom teacher who cannot possibly compete with that high stimuli. So that's why everything within our program is presented very simply so that they can learn how to pay attention to that low stimuli at will. Okay? Now, I have play attention on the screen right now. And I logged in as one of my students because I wanted to show you a few features that are really important when you're considering incorporating this into your school. And you'll notice that every student has his or her own login. And when that student logs in, remember how I showed you the main screen where we can pinpoint the different cognitive skills that we want to address: attention stamina, filtering distractions, working memory, short-term memory, task completion. All of those are separate cognitive skills. And so you'll set up each student's profile, and your school is going to be assigned a personal executive function coach. That's one of our coaches here on staff to assist you every step of the way. So one of the things we're going to do is teach you how to customize each student's profile. Then once we do that, we're going to take you through a practice session just to make sure you're real comfortable with everything before you start your sessions officially. And then once you start your sessions, Dear Genius, our artificial intelligence, takes over and does a lot of the thinking for you. So when your student logs in, and you'll see here, if you look at the top right-hand corner of the screen, my student Jamie has logged in. And when Jamie logs in, here are all of the exercises that Sheer Genius selected for Jamie. So Sheer Genius looked at Jamie's previous performance, and then based on that performance, selected 5 new exercises for today. So we know that we have to work on attention stamina, my ability to direct and sustain attention. This is what you just saw Ty do. Visual tracking. This is a great one for your students who have difficulty paying attention and visually tracking the teacher at the same time. So, if you stand right next to them, they do really well. But as soon as you walk away, they're out the window and out the door, and then they have that diffused attention. So we work on staying focused and visually track. Discriminatory processing. This is the ability to stay attentive to what's important and filter out all of that unnecessary stimuli. Because your student with ADHD is sitting there and knows a little bit about what you said, but also knows what Bird's doing outside and what Johnny's doing in the back of the room, because he's picking up bits and pieces of everything. So we're going to work on staying focused and visually tracking. Lotus, this is a mindfulness program. And I know a lot of you here have incorporated mindfulness into your school curriculum. And that's great, because we know that mindfulness helps with a lot when it comes to ADHD and anxiety. However, it's sometimes very difficult to look at someone and say, now I want you to practice mindfulness, because mindfulness is difficult. It's difficult for all of us, but especially if we have that constant running mind. So what we do is we give them a visual representation of what it means to be in the present moment. This one is lotus. So you see a lotus flower in the middle of the screen. We also have Da Vinci's candle, where you see Da Vinci's candle in the middle of the screen. But as long as you have your mind in the present moment, you're able to make the flame on the candle glow brighter and brighter. If you start to get distracted, or you start thinking about when's my next meeting, or if you're a student and you start thinking about what's for homework, what do I have to do next, when can my friend come over, that glow will dim, and they have to bring themselves back to the present moment in order to continue. So we're giving them that real-time feedback regarding their ability to be mindful and stay in the present moment. And then we also have assigned math skills, first grade subtraction. So we also have math skills here. And hopefully you can all see, can can someone just type in Y if you can see this screen? I should have checked a little bit earlier. Can you see attention, stamina, visual tracking? You're seeing everything I'm seeing on my screen right now. Okay, great, excellent. All right, thank you for that. All right, so now I also want to show you, not only is Sheer Genius going to actually set up the curriculum for today, but Sheer Genius is also going to set mini goals, because we know that when we start an academic program or an academic assignment, we always should have a goal in mind, an objective. So I'm going to click on discriminatory processing here. And you'll see in the right-hand side of the screen, I'm working in the bronze level, which is the beginner level. And then today's game goal is to play for at least 2 minutes and 6 seconds. So I have a time-based goal. It might be an attention-based goal. So it might say, yesterday you were 70% attentive. Today, let's try 72%. And if you do that, you earn a point, and the point goes into your reward system. And you'll notice that here, my student has achieved 7 points because that student has actually reached the goal that Sheer Genius set 7 times. So they have 7 points they can use to actually go into their reward system and purchase rewards that you might set up for them. So the goal setting, the curriculum, the goal setting, the reward system, it's all built within Play Attention. And it's all tracked by Sheer Genius. So we really streamlined the process for you. Now, also, you'll notice that my first 3 exercises has a bronze medal and Lotus has a silver level. So there's a bronze, silver, and gold level within each exercise. So there's a beginner, intermediate, and advanced skill option. And there are certain benchmarks you're going to have to reach before moving up to intermediate and then to advanced. And our artificial intelligence, Sheer Genius, will actually track those benchmarks and graduate that student when appropriate. When we move them up into those higher levels of performance, then we also tie in processing speed, which is great for your slow processors. We tie in impulse control, distractors, and task switching to help them with that mental flexibility. So we tie in more processes that, again, are required for strong executive function. So this is a good example of what your students will see when they come into this learning process. And I also want to show you what it looks like when you log in as a coach, because you have certain abilities that you can use when you're logged in as coach. Of course, one is that you can set up each individual student and create the profile for each individual so that you'll be able to see all of your students here. You can also go to the reports tab and you can select a certain student and show the report on that student. So you're going to have lots of graphs and charts that you can see over time. You can actually print out these graphs and these charts and keep them in an IEP, use them for reviews with other educators, with other teachers, with other parents. And we even have a circle of success within the program. That means you can put in that student's teacher's email address, the parent's email address, the coach and grandparent, whoever's involved in that child's profile, in that child's circle. And you will be able to communicate right from Play Attention, send progress reports to those individuals right from Play Attention, because we're going to teach you how you can communicate in order to make certain that other people within that student circle is reinforcing what they're learning to help with that transfer and generalization of the skills learned. Another area that we address transfer and generalization is the academic bridge. So we talked about how all of these different cognitive skills work on different areas that are required for strong executive function. But I do want to point out this very special academic bridge, because this is where you can have your students do reading, spelling, math, write a report while connected to the body wave system. And this is where we're asking them to take all of the skills they've learned within play attention and apply them to their actual work. So if I am reading, or if I'm your student and I'm writing a report and I'm really focused on my report, I'm going to hear from the computer, good, great. If I start to drift, I hear focus. And then I know I'm not in that state I need to be in order to process the information and complete that assignment in a timely manner. So no longer you as teacher standing over them saying, get back on track, get back on track. We're using neurotechnology to redirect them and give them immediate feedback so they can develop that self-regulation they need in order to start and complete assignments in a timely manner. Now, again, we're going to teach you how to customize the program, and all of these skills are required for strong executive function. And one of the things I brought up when I talked about Tufts University School of Medicine is that the end results showed that this play attention students had global increases in academic performance. It was one of the areas, not just executive function, but academic performance. And I saw this firsthand many times, but one of the students I worked with was Jaylon, really bright student. And he was in my second grade classroom, and he could call out answers to double-digit addition and subtraction problems off the top of his head. Really bright. But when I said, great, now go back and sit down and write that down, I'd look at him 2 minutes later and he'd be on top of the desk and under the desk, and he had no idea what he was supposed to be doing. And then at the end of second grade, when he took the end of grade test, he tested out in the 65th percentile. Now, I knew, and you probably as an educator have experienced this in the past, where you look at those results and you know, as I did, it wasn't really assessing his math ability. It was assessing his ability to sit still for 40 minutes and fill out the bubbles and take the information from his head and get it down on paper and sustain his attention and filter distractions. So it wasn't really about his math ability. It was about his ability to direct and sustain his attention to that math test. So I kept him in play attention. I started play attention, kept him in play attention throughout third grade. And at the end of third grade, he tested out in the 99th percentile. Now, I never made him smarter. I didn't make him smarter. He was already that smart. I just helped him develop the skills that he needed in order to be able to show what he knew. And that's the power of play attention. You're actually helping them to develop those skills so that they can reach their potential and really unlock that potential. Mm-hmm. Another thing that we have incorporated that I brought up earlier is the behavior shaping component. And when we looked at the reports here, you may have noticed that when I selected my student, I showed the report and there was this behavior progress here where we looked at off task, or we can select others, calls out, hums, fidgets. And this is a really important component of the program, is that not only are we working on cognitive skills, but we're also going to work on behavior shaping. So for your students who have self-distracting behaviors like skin picking, nail biting, chewing on their shirt, we would turn this component on. And the powerful thing about that feedback technology, what neurotechnology allows them to do, is get a one-to-one correlation on how certain behaviors affect their attention. And then you're going to use that to help them learn how to control those behaviors. So again, I'll go back to my student, Jaylon, because I know a lot of you can relate to these stories. But he would call out constantly. I would be teaching math. He'd be calling out what he did over the weekend, just random things that came to the top of his mind. And when I originally asked him, I said, why do you think it's important that you don't call out? And he said, because you tell me not to. So it had nothing to do with his attention or his performance. It was just that I didn't like it, so you should stop. And so he had no idea how that calling out behavior affected him. And so when we started this process, and he would be doing, let's say, he'd be doing attention stamina that you saw Ty do, and he'd have that character at the bottom of the ocean. He'd have it down there with his attention alone, and he'd call out, "We like SpaghettiOs." Immediately, that character would start to float up because he was no longer as attentive. And then I had a real teachable moment. What happened to that character when you called out? Well, it started to float up. So what does that mean? It means I'm not paying attention. So in the classroom, when you do that, what does it mean? It means I'm not paying attention. So it's no longer me telling him what to do, what not to do. I'm just guiding him through the process. And sheer genius is going to set behavioral goals so that we're going to work on certain behaviors. And not only is he going to know and make the connection on his behavior and his attention, but he's going to see over time that he can control it. And that's where you're going to see the real behavioral changes take place, where we can take them through that entire process. Okay. So those are the key components of the Play Attention program. And I'm going to go back to my other screen here now. And once it comes up here, you should be able to see it. So please do keep your questions coming. And I hope that this gives you a good understanding of how you can actually start incorporating a program for your students that will develop those foundational skills required for strong executive function. Now, when you're thinking about how to incorporate this into your school, you want to start thinking about, do you want to do one-on-one work or small groups? Because when I first started using Play Attention, we had a Play Attention professional system in the beginning, and we were doing one-on-one. Now, when you're selecting your students, you do want to set up a consistent schedule where you're able to work with each student about an hour per week. And that hour can be broken up. So that hour could be 4 15-minute sessions, but most of our school settings do 2 30-minute sessions. So for example, in the school where I was, we had a Monday, Wednesday group and a Tuesday, Thursday group, and we used Friday as a makeup day. And we scheduled them in about 30-minute blocks so that they would get their hour in per week. So you can do that one-on-one. Now, I just was working with a school in Atlanta, and they're doing one-on-one setting, but then they're also incorporating our iLab, which allows one staff member to work with multiple students in a lab setting. And so that will allow, this particular school is going to start one-on-one with some of those students who need a little bit more attention. They might have a lot of behaviors. There might be a lot of comorbidity. It may be a student who has autism and they just need that one-on-one time a little bit more. But their goal is to then develop all of these skills and be able to move them into that small group or that lab setting. So you'll want to think about what would work best with your students. One-on-one, small group, or do what that school system I've been working with recently is doing, starting some in the one-on-one, having that ability to eventually move them into small groups or a lab setting. You'll want to select your students, and of course, you're going to select students who need to develop all of these foundational skills that are required for executive function. You'll meet with your assigned executive function coach. Remember, that's one of our coaches here on staff. Take your tutorial where we take you through that practice session, and then you'll be able to get started, and Sheer Genius, our artificial intelligence, will do a lot of the work for you. Kathy asks, can this work for 12th graders? How long would they need to be in the program to make a difference? I'm so glad you asked that, Kathy, because that's really important to keep in mind when you're scheduling your students. 12th graders, absolutely. Remember, I mentioned that Play Attention is appropriate for every age from 5 years old all the way up through adulthood. we have a home system available, and a lot of our home clients are in their 40s and 50s and 60s. So it is absolutely appropriate for your seniors in high school. Now, we do recommend that hour per week. You'll start to see good results after about 6 weeks of consistent training. You're going to notice that they're more engaged, that work assignments are getting done faster, that you're not redirecting, you're not reminding as much, you're not making as many careless errors. So you're going to start seeing these small steps of improvement. But what you're not seeing is what's actually occurring in the brain, and that's that you're causing these new neural pathways to become formed. And in the beginning, those networks are weak. So one day it'll look like they're doing beautifully, and then the next day it'll look like they've never heard the word attention before. There's going to be a little bit of up and down. But through the practice and repetition, you're actually strengthening those networks to a point of permanency. And permanency typically takes about 40 hours total. So if you're working that hour per week, I would plan on a full school year. If they start 1 year, if they start right about now, and they're not quite ready to graduate the program when it's summer, you can pick those students up the following year. Now, Kathy, that's important for you to remember when you're setting up your program for seniors. I would recommend that you do a little bit more than that hour per week to make certain that we are able to graduate them by the time they graduate high school, and they can carry these skills into university or into the workplace, wherever they're deciding to go next. And that is important because we want to know that not only will they have these skills now, they're going to have them 20 years from now, right? You're preparing them to be moving on into adulthood. So we want to make certain permanency is there. And your executive function coach will always be there to help you make decisions upon graduation. But again, it's around 40 hours on the technology itself. So the professional version that you would incorporate into your school includes everything you need to run your program. It comes with your body wave technology, your cognitive training software, your full behavior shaping component. It includes an unlimited user license. So that means if you have 25 students you want to enroll tomorrow, you can enroll all 25, and there's never any relicensing fee. You have unlimited for as long as you're using Play Attention, and your unlimited support. So whether it's you've been using it for a year or you've been using it for 15 years, you always have support with us. Typically, the program comes with the first 6 core cognitive skills that I have outlined, academic bridge all the way down to discriminatory processing. But with this special webinar, I am going to provide you with all 12 exercises. So auditory processing, that's the ability to follow through with multiple step instructions, hand-eye coordination, Lotus that we talked about earlier, our mindfulness application, spatial memory, social skills, working memory. You'll receive those in your bundle as well. Usually that additional bundle is about $329, but as a webinar attendee and a way of saying thank you, you'll receive all 12 of these cognitive skills included in your package. When you talk about doing iLab and moving into that small group work, it is important to remember that there are discounts when you start doing that small group work. So if you have interest and you want to talk a little bit more about professional system and then incorporating the iLab, we can have that discussion. A couple of you have asked about who can use the program as far as staff members, who should be the overall coach working with students. And you do not have to have a certified teacher actually using Play Attention with your students. When I was using Play Attention with my students, I had actually also trained all of our teacher assistants to use the program. So you can use teacher assistants if you would like. You can draw on all available staff, whether it's teachers, guidance counselors, therapists, assistants, whoever you would like. And your training will be upfront when you start your program. Okay, good questions. Please do keep them coming. Now, again, some of you have asked about that $24.95. It is a one-time fee with that unlimited user license. So if you think about your first year, if you put 25 students through the program in your first year because you started with one play attention system. That means each student was about $100 per student. After that, it's paid for. You continue enrolling students as you go throughout the years. There's no reoccurring fees with your license. Okay. So now I do appreciate your time. I know that being educators, you're probably pressed for time right now, and many of you have to jump. But if you would like to continue this conversation, I really do encourage you to type some questions in the chat box. We'll address your questions. If you want just a quick chat, you want one of us to give you a call to answer additional questions that came up, just simply type in your phone number. Or if you would like to get started and take advantage of that special offer that runs through the end of this month, go ahead and type in your phone number and also type in your time of day that works best for you. So a day, time of day, so that we'll be able to reach you would be really nice. So if you have additional questions or you want to get started for your school, just type in your phone number and a time that you would like a call, and one of us will reach out to you. If you would like a little bit more information and perhaps have some of your colleagues in the meeting that possibly could not attend today, go ahead and type in consultation, and we will reach out to you to actually schedule a consultation time. So we can do a one-on-one consultation with you, or we'd be happy to do a school consultation where many faculty members can be present and we can answer everyone's questions and talk about setting up an effective play attention program for your school. Thank you so much, everyone. I really do appreciate your time today. And we look forward to working with you and your students and making certain that we improve executive function and make certain that academic success is available for all of your students. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day. Oh, Kathy, sorry about that. Let me answer your questions. Do we have a program for parents and individuals to use with a student at home? Yes, we do have a home system available, Kathy, and that is available for both children and adults. So again, 5 through 105. And if you want more information on that, Kathy, just let me know, and I will certainly reach out to you and give you a little bit more information on that home system as well. Thank you so much, everyone. I will keep the chat box up for a little while. So if you want to just type in other requests or questions, please do, and we will follow up with you. Alicia, yes, we're going to share the recording tomorrow. So watch your email tomorrow, and we'll make certain that you get that recording. And if you do want to call back, just let us know what time is a good callback for you also. Next webinar that we do is going to be next Wednesday, and it is for parents. So maybe you as a parent would like to attend, or you have parents that you want to refer our webinar to, and that is going to be Parenting the Neurodivergent Child. And we're going to be specifically talking about how to develop that self-regulation and independence. Thanks so much, everyone. We appreciate your time and look forward to speaking to you very soon.